On vacation? No, I have to travel for work. We don't. Yeah, we've been pretty diligent in it, yes. All right, we'll go ahead and get started this evening. Thanks everyone for coming. We will,
Okay, it's 5:30. Mr. Keller's called the meeting to order here. I see all 7 board members here, so we'll just skip the roll call and mark you all present. And good news, I'll just mention a couple of things quickly. The start of school has gone well, and the only other thing I put in the board packet as far as good news was a thank you and a really nice thing with McCoy Hardware. They received a grant for free paint, and then I think added some additional to that, and we've been using that as part of our auditorium refresh, doing some painting in some of the rooms that are around the auditorium. So thanks to McCoy Hardware. So that's really it for good news. And I think topic of interest, we moved up to the top of the agenda here too for the board discussion.
okay. So we'll go ahead and go with this now. So since we're all sitting here, I'm just going to give a little bit of a little historical reference so anybody listening can understand where we've been and where we're at right now this evening. So in the summer of 2020, we heard that a group of concerned citizens wanted to speak to us about removing and replacing the Indian name and logo. At that time, we of course had a lot on our plates in dealing with COVID and our return to learn plan, and we asked that this group please wait until after our plates were a little less full. Sometime around the end of February, beginning of March of this year, I'd met with Mr. Sadoff and representatives from the Indianola Athletic Boosters to begin a discussion about the district's nickname and logo. I remembered that I'd heard about an organization made up of American Indians that would do an analysis for school districts with mascots, names, and logos associated with American Indians. Subsequently, I reached out to this organization, which is the Native American Guardians Association, to inquire about their services. After a few conversations with representatives from NAGA and a few conversations with Mr. Sadoff and I felt it was in our district's best interest to obtain an independent assessment by this organization regarding the usage of the Indian nickname and logo. At this time, I'd like everyone to know that the reason I started this project is because I believe it is our responsibility as stewards, servants, and representatives of the school district to make certain that the current usage of our nickname and logo is proper and respectful. I believe in being proactive and not reactive. At no time did I consider that me working with representatives from NAGA on this assessment of the Indian name and logo to be improper. However, in the months of June and July, my personal character, motivation, and trust has been called into question by a couple members of this community. Therefore, I'd like to set the record straight right now. I care deeply about this community, and I care deeply about the families that make up this community. It goes against every fiber inside of me to purposely offend or discriminate against another person or people group. For this reason, and this reason only, did I reach out to NAGA and work with them in obtaining an assessment of our district's nickname and logo. So of course, all of you board members know that NAGA's assessment of the Indian nickname and logo was completed, and it came back favorably towards our district's current usage. Had they found our usage to be improper or offensive, they would have let us know and helped work with us to make it proper and respectful. All of this was clearly presented at the April 19th board work session. Since the April 19th board work session, we've had a few members of our community reach out to us during the public comment section of our board meetings, voicing their sincere objection towards the usage of the Indian nickname and logo. At our last board meeting, I asked all of us to decide whether or not to take up this issue as a matter of discussion at this evening's meeting, and we all agreed that we would do just that. I know many of you have heard from members of the community over the past week regarding this issue. Tonight, I'd like to hear from each of my fellow board members concerning how we move forward and how we best hear from the citizens that we represent regarding the future usage of the Indian nickname and logo. With that, I'll open it up for conversation to include all of you guys and your thoughts on this matter. Go ahead, Ken.
Can I kick off, if I could? My thoughts are this is not a small thing. The Indian name has been part of the community for years and years. I don't know when it started. We, the boards of stewards of that area, I think do now wish to encourage the community to dialogue about this. I personally feel that we've treated the Indian name with respect over the years. Others might feel differently. I see this as a program of community involvement, which might take 6 months or a year. We are asking for dialogue, or I'm asking for dialogue, within the communities. We feel that the affected communities should have time to discuss and review thoughts on the subject, and then publicly be able to voice them. If we don't take our time and shoot from the hip, the community hasn't learned anything and we haven't done our job. We need to have time to share and to talk. Now, the communities we have to reach, and other input I hope to get tonight, to me, are the residents of the school district, the students in our high school, and the alumni of our system living both Indianola and out. We've received a good quantity of emails which have brought up many, many interesting points, which are fruits for good discussions. I would hope that we can get these questions, facts, and concerns out to the community to discuss by way of website or something of that nature. To this end, I think we need to develop a plan that encompasses information gathering, public meetings, plural, presentations, and like I said, information on our website. We have expressed a desire to work with a Native American organization in an understanding of their culture. We mentioned one group, other groups have been mentioned to us. So basically, you know what I'm saying, and I can talk about, I had another paragraph I'll just hold in case we need it. I have been asked, can the community just vote on this? And if we need to discuss that, I will. But we need to take our time to do this, to organize dialogues in the community. Personal thought.
And I'd like to add, not disagreeing with what you say, but I just know, like right now, we are still in the middle of a pandemic. As a school board member, my priority is the education of the kids at this point. To spend time, money, effort right now, to me, this is not our priority. I'm not disagreeing with that we should talk about it, but I also think it's something that we should delay till we get through the pandemic, because we even have, like, right now our enrollment's down a little bit from the year before when you just look at the outgoing seniors and incoming kindergartners. I mean, we've got bigger issues right now, in my opinion. I also think, just being honest, that, you know, the school board election's coming up. Several of us are not going to be on the school board. Even if we were going for election, we wouldn't know if we were on it. I think we need to respect the people that join the school board and start after they become members, which would be January at the earliest. So I agree that I think we should have a process. We should have a forum where anyone can come talk, and we should do it in a way that's very organized and take the time. But just right now, this is not my priority with COVID. I want the kids back on track. I want to spend all the time and money supporting the teachers and the kids. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Karen. Ken, can you revisit what you said? One of those 3 points, you said info gathering, public meeting, and then there was one other
Website.
one. Website. Thanks. Any other board members like to? Go ahead, Lori.
I agree with Ken and Carolyn. I know. I just think that, I mean, it's a priority. I think we need public forum. I think we need several public forums. And it, like Ken said, it's going to take anywhere from a year to 2 years to get to that point, so we can hear everybody's side and everybody's story. But I think right now, with the new virus, or the Delta virus coming around, I think we need to focus on our kids, keep our kids healthy, keep them safe, and keep visiting this, and we'll work on it, but let's get through the pandemic and teach our kids. And let's keep doing a lot of research and try to get in some public forums so we can make this a public discussion. That's where I'm at.
Ben, Sue, or Donna?
I agree with everything that's been said. I mean, obviously, we haven't had a full regular school year in now 2 calendar years. So we're playing catch up with a lot of things and just trying to get our footing back in that, and that's obviously our priority. Any decision we make it has to be our kids that we serve, and that's a priority of mine, just like Carolyn mentioned. It's not that we want to focus on this, but I think it involves a lot of steps as far as community community involvement and discussion and information gathering. And it's something that's not gonna be resolved tonight.
You need microphones or go to the mic so we can hear what you're saying. I can't hear you, what you're saying.
We'll try to speak louder then.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Sue.
Yeah, I can go
Thanks,
next.
Ben.
I agree with all of it. I think it's not, I don't believe that it's really our decision. I believe it's a community decision. I believe that there are some very, very educated people in this community that has personal experience with this issue, that has background and history. And I hope that we can develop like we talked about, just a well-defined process so everybody can come to the table, their thoughts can be heard. I also hope that we can create an environment that brings facts and history and education and not just emotion. I think that emotion making decisions can be a slippery slope. And I would also like to see the people that really have the passion be people that are connected to our community, that are people that are voting in the community, have long relationships in the community, because every town, every school, every place is so different. And I think the same as Indianola, that we're special and we're unique. And so hearing from the people that are really homegrown is awesome. And I do think we're at this critical point where we do have to turn our focuses back to our teachers and our students and the mental health of our teachers and our students and the safety of our teachers and our students. We still have some work to do in those categories when it comes to safety and mental health and education. So thank you guys all for coming, because I know it's a huge issue, and I know a lot of people really have a lot of really good things to say. So I think we can have it both ways. I think we can set up some community events so people can really voice, and then I think that can help us also keep our focus where it needs to be for the board.
Donna. Thanks, Sue.
Just as a former teacher, my main concern is how we model this discussion and this debate for children. And we will have lots of kids watching this. And what I've seen on social media and letters we've gotten, I would not necessarily say that lots of respect is being shown in several areas. And I don't want the discussion to be something that we can't all be proud of. And I would like everyone to be an active listener in the discussion, suspend your own personal feelings, and just listen to what other people have to say. I'm also really interested in facts. I grew up here, I graduated from here, my kids did, my grandkids did. I understand all the emotion. I completely understand the emotion. What I really want is some facts. And an example of one fact I will give you, just because my dad was on the board 25 years ago when this issue came up, and I've also talked to someone else who was on the board. And the reason it came about 25 years ago was because the superintendent of this district asked the Department of Ed to do an equity study in Indianola because he felt like some things were not equitable. It wasn't just the name, but after the Department of Ed did their investigation, they had some concern about the Indian mascot, name, logo, all of it. And so that is how that discussion started 25 years ago. So for people that think this is coming from outside of our community or anything like that, it is not. It has been people in this community that have driven this discussion. So I am agreeing with the rest of the board. We have many, many issues that really have more priority for me than this, but.
So I guess what I'm hearing then is that we don't need to act quickly. I think everybody agrees with that. Would the majority of the board feel that we table this until after the elections? Do you want to see something start happening before the election? We'll have 3 positions available, I guess. So
Well, you know my thought. I think it makes sense to wait. And it does give you a little bit of buffer with, we don't know what's ahead of us with school with the Delta variant.
Right.
So, and I'm not just saying that to punt it. I just think it makes sense and to respect the people that are on the board. They should be here from day one.
Also something that I would like to see, like all of you guys have said, that this is rooted in facts and understanding. Like Ken had said, we've heard from one organization, the Native American Guardians Association, and we've been told that there's other groups out there that would have opposing views on that. I would like to host something where the community can learn what each of those groups have to say, why they believe what they believe. I mean, I can only speak to the NAGR group because that's who I've spoken with and stuff, and their board is made up of American Indians from across the country, and they believe one way, yet there's other groups that believe the other way. So I feel like the community has a right to know that and understand their viewpoints so they can hear out those opposing sides so they can make educated decisions for themselves after reviewing those facts. And then again, our job as board members is then to listen to that community, to hear that community out, our community. That's who we're representatives of. So in thinking all this, I think that's something we need to have is a presentation or something from each of those sides to understand why they believe what they believe and why this side believes what they believe.
I'd like to see a question and ask forum where you've got the groups here and then the public can ask questions as to why or how come and get feedback so we all understand where all the groups are coming from.
Okay.
So I think that feedback would be very good for, they could be here, set it, maybe it'll take 2 forums to do that. But have the groups here and the public can ask questions and then get answers, so then they understand everybody. I mean, this is a teaching moment. Let's use it to our advantage and say, okay, let's learn what we do or we don't know and have everybody understand why there's 2 different sides.
Sure.
I think it's got to be the community that understands and then makes the decision.
So
Probably one thing I want to call
Go ahead.
out, just for the people that are here. I mean, when we have these meetings, we're subject to like very formal meeting structure. So if something's not on the agenda, we can't talk about it. So when people would come in the public comment section, we can listen, but it's not like there's a back and forth dialogue. And so, we're sticking to the purpose that we've always said this meeting was going to have, which is we want to talk about the fact of, do we want to act on this? And act could be, we want to start up these meetings and these conversations. And I think social media kind of took it and ran. It was like, everyone needs to come tonight. But, and we appreciate it, but we'd also want you to realize was our intent all along, is to get it on the table officially, to figure out what the next steps were. And if the next step is that we have public forums, not that you can't stay and, voice your concerns now, but, there is going to be a time and place for it. And up until now, we publicly weren't saying any of that.
Right.
So, just to explain the process, because it's a little odd, I think.
Sure. So let's circle back then. How do we want to go about this? What do you guys think for a timeline? What does the board feel like an appropriate timeline for this is?
Okay, from what I'm hearing, I'm gonna wonder if we can come together on the fact that we really don't need anything to happen, presentations or anything, till after the school board election.
Okay.
But during that time, I'd be happy to receive emails from anybody with suggestions about types of things we should do, like town halls, how they should be structured. We should keep thinking about it. But I think the point of being close to the election, a new board taking over, is very, very valid.
Would the rest of the board agree with it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we will table this until after the next school board election. And then we'll have another public discussion about how we continue to move forward. And in between now and then,
Hopefully we can come up with some great ideas too.
yes, yeah.
I won't stop
And
listening.
if members of the community would like to reach out to us, that are for or against this, feel free to do so. Like Mr. Bresnan said, we're all here in your town, your neighbors, your friends, and we always have been, and we continue to be that way in the future. And I'd really love to see this as a community builder for our community and not something that will divide our community, something that will build our community for many years to come. And I think we're trying to do it the right way. I really feel like we are, and I think we will continue to do it the right way. So, yeah, please feel free to send over your suggestions, if you have any, on how we might hear from you guys as members of the community. And do your best, to research it. If you have one viewpoint, it's always good to look at the other side and say, like, well, what do I not understand about this? Am I seeing it something different? If you have the opposing viewpoint, maybe you look at the other side. What am I not seeing about this and stuff? So we'll table for now, and then bring this back up after the next election, which will be held in the beginning of November. Moving on, we have the consent agenda, next we have the delegations, petitions, and communications. Any board members have anything first, any board reports or anything?
Yeah, I'm with the Iowa Association of School Board Legislative Committee, and I got to attend the morning session, where it was interesting. A lot of discussions about things we've been talking about with the change in the rules of the legislature, freedom of speech, teachers and students, all the restrictions from the recent legislation, talking about those. And the conversation was how to make sure we implement them and all of that. It will all filter down through the association start too, so I didn't have to cover things down. AEA has got a funding problem. They've got an archaic way of funding, and they are trying to get it to work exactly like the school districts are funded. So they're dealing with that, and you'll see more information on that as time comes. The most interesting one to me was a director of Iowa Association of Schools brought up the concept of mandated board training. My first reaction is you can't tell board members anything, let them do that. But, and the conversation went on, her point was good. 26 states have mandated board training. And what we thought is what she said, shouldn't the Iowa Association of School Boards try and write the legislation, because our legislature's been talking about something too.
Okay.
So to write it for them. So she's working on that.
Okay.
And, because I talked to them about how their stuff was a little bit late, and doing stuff, and we found this sweet spot when the new 4 members came between the election and when they were seated, that we could get together and talk a little bit, so. And that was only half the day, but I couldn't go for the other.
Thanks, Ken. Anyone else, any other board reports? We'll go ahead and start.
We do have some people signed up to speak. We have Kristen Graham from Indianola. And if you would, Kristen, this mic should be on.
Hello. Can everyone hear me through my mask okay?
I can, I'm hard of hearing, so I think it's okay.
Okay. So this has been an issue for me personally and the student body in the community since the 90s. I believe we came in front of the school board in 1995. So what I have today is I'd like to share a letter that is public record that was sent to, I believe, Mr. Keller and Mr. Sata from the Iowa Commission on Native American Affairs. This is on behalf of Governor Reynolds, Lieutenant Governor Adam Craig, Sam Wong, the Director of Iowa Department of Human Rights. It was sent on October 30th, 2020. So I really felt that this letter should have been included when you spoke of the NAGA, Mr. Keller. So I'm just going to read the letter. Once again, it is not my letter. It was penned by Karen McKay, who is chair of the Iowa Commission on Native American Affairs. So this is from the state of Iowa, October 30th, 2020. In NFL stadiums and in high school bleachers of Colorado, Michigan, Maine, Florida, Washington, and every state in between, we have witnessed an evolution in mainstream views on the use of Native American mascots, nicknames, and imagery. Our Iowa school districts and communities have an opportunity to be on the forefront of this movement and should likewise evolve beyond the use of Native mascots. The use of Native symbols and likenesses is unarguably degrading and hurtful to Native people who are forced to see themselves reduced to mere caricatures and see their cultures co-opted for purposes divorced from Native self-determination. For nearly 30 years, mental health professionals have noted that the use of Native mascots is immeasurably detrimental to Native people. For this reason, agencies like the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, the American Sociological Association, the Modern Language Association, the National Education Association, the American Psychological Association, and notably the National Collegiate Athletic Association have adopted rules intended to eliminate or discourage the use of Native mascots. Continued use of Native mascots in light of this recognized harm simply has no place in the just societies that our schools are designed to foster. Additionally, the use of Native mascots is contrary to Iowa's reputation for offering students a world-class education. The use of Native team names gives students and fans the impression that Native people are purely historical or even fictional. Although many Iowans might only be familiar with Native people from depictions in Western films and elsewhere in popular culture, Iowa's Native population comprises of more than 16,000 people. This number has grown substantially over the past two decades and reflects a population that is younger, on average, than Iowa's total population and resides mostly in Iowa's urban areas. Natives are not consigned to history books or distant frontiers. They are our neighbors and a vital, thriving segment of Iowa's population. There is no reason to undermine schools' efforts to produce informed citizens by encouraging an inaccurate view of Native people in our student bodies and communities through the use of Native mascots. The state of Iowa, we hope this letter encourages you, the city of Indianola, and the school board, and our community to consider the harms and risks associated with the use of Native mascots, nicknames, and imagery. Permanent removal of these outdated symbols is necessary to ensure Iowa schools retain their reputation as some of the nation's best and continue our tradition of equitable and thoughtful education. We urge you to join leaders in education from across the country and adopt a policy banning Native mascots, nicknames, and imagery from your school, that would be Indianola Community Schools, and school districts. Sincerely, once again, Karen McKay, Chair of the Iowa Commission on Native American Affairs, which is part of the Iowa Department of Human Rights. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We have Audrey Fusco next.
I would first like to thank the superintendent and school board members for taking the time and opportunity to open the Indianola Indian name up for discussion. I know it is a sensitive topic for many and there's no easy decision ahead. My name is Audrey Fusco. I grew up here in Indianola. I now live here and work here and am raising my family here. I have read letters, emails, and other correspondence from Native American groups and organizations in Iowa calling on Indianola to change the name of the Indianola Indians, the National Congress of American Indians, and the Commission of the Native American Affairs of Iowa are groups I've seen reach out to the school board just this past year alone. I know this discussion has gone on for a few decades, and we're still talking about it today. The name of the Indianola Indians has proven it will not cease to be a problem should no changes be made. There are similar changes being made all around us on a local and a national level. We will eventually reach a point where Indianola is all but forced to recognize the appropriation of a race of people and finally make a change. Do we want to be the generation that made the change because it was the right thing to do, or because we waited too long and then we had to for fear of public image? I understand we have received a positive review from the Native American Guardians Association. I don't disagree Indianola should have more in the way of Native American education. Accurately educating our youth on our history is a good way forward. I also understand that this same group, NAGA, has advocated for the use of the Red Men name in other school districts. We have already decided as a college and as a town that name is not a good representation of our values and how we wanted to present ourselves. We should hear all perspectives, opinions, and lived experiences while keeping in mind the forward progress we have made to get to this point. Even with the removal of the previous Simpson mascot, people in our town continue to make new branded items with the Red Men name and imagery. As homecoming of 2019, there were shirts circulating and being heavily promoted on Facebook and elsewhere. I understand nostalgia, memories, and the desire to relive the good old days. I do not understand disregard for what has been dubbed as appropriation and disrespect to a school trying to do better and those in the town it directly affects. These two things are not mutually exclusive. As long as we are the Indianola Indians, the door for these inappropriate actions remains wide open. There's a long road of change and acclimation ahead of us with this, but the sooner we start, the better. We can be the catalyst to change right now and move forward with new generations having the option to actually have a mascot to rally around, instead of walking on eggshells of what's appropriate use and what's just straight up appropriation. I have kids and family in this district. I've coached several times and I continue to today. My kids should not be called Indians when cheering them on in sports. If this team name was interchanged with any other race or ethnicity, this would not even be a conversation. We have Native American kids in our district right now. We owe them a better school experience than this. There is no rush, deadline, or immediate need to have it all figured out right now. At minimum, a declaration acknowledging a change needs to be made, and to not brand anything going further with the Indian name is all that's needed right now. This is a $0 upfront cost. I have trust in the board to be financially responsible, while also being respectful to what's been asked of us. This is not a popular opinion to hold in this town. At each crossroads where Indianola has had to make a decision, bullying, intimidation, and fear of repercussions has played a large role. I know people who work for the school in positions in town where they are nervous and hesitant to speak up on this matter for fear of those repercussions or possibly losing their job. I have read statements from people in this town who have tried this change before, and they've had their businesses directly threatened if they were not silent. I am in a unique position where I have no fear of losing my job over my belief. Bullying and intimidation cannot be the overriding factor that decides this time. It is a fine line to walk in this town while trying to do the right thing. It's easy to feel like you overstep on something that doesn't directly affect you, or it feels like you're not doing enough to amplify the voices and requests of the minority group the subject affects the most. This is not a Native problem for us to be empathetic towards. This is an us problem for us to fix. I have a few specific additional questions to ask the board directly. Have you since reached out to the Meskwaki Nation, who sent a letter to the Marion School District on the use of the same mascot name? Have you responded to NCAI or the Iowa Commission of Native American Affairs? It is my understanding that the Indianola School Board and the district have not studied the possible costs of rebranding, especially since there's no plan in place. Is this correct? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sandy, is it Bloom?
It is.
Okay,
Yes.
Sandy Bloom.
Dr.
Yep,
Pasta.
you bet. Thank you.
I just wanted to share some personal thoughts about the whole mascot issue. I'm also an Indianola resident, have been for 40 plus years. 3 kids through the system, grandkids now in the system. My opinion, and I know it's shared by many, is that our mascot is a symbol of great pride. And personally, I think the Indian mascot is worthy of the mascot because my research, and I've read some books and things, actually very recently, that involve Indian cultures and things. But my opinion is that the Indian represents a lot of characteristics that I would want all of our students to emulate. There are people of great pride. They are people of bravery. They are very courageous people. They were very driven people. They were people that worked together for the common good of their tribes. Those are all good characteristics.
And so I see this whole topic as something that we could take and use to teach our kids. For example, a big assembly at the beginning of the school year that addresses where our mascot came from, what it represents, and what it means. So let's talk about Indians in the state of Iowa, what they contributed to our state, what they continue to contribute to our state, and why we like our mascot, what it means to us. I think this is a great learning opportunity, and instead of just canceling it, let's use it to teach our kids. Thanks.
Thank you.
Lisa Kaz.
You have to sign up.
Hi, I'm Lisa Kaz, and I'm here just to, you guys, I actually just have to say, I saw a really good conversation amongst the council on this subject, so I'm not going to go through the list of, I didn't have a lot to say anyway, I was just going to ask a couple questions, but thank you so much for the conversation. I thank you for the fact that the kids' education was put first. I think that that is important. We are still dealing with a lot of issues, and we have some issues coming up potentially that are going to, that can really impact our school's funding and how many children we have in school going forward from this point on. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I really appreciate that as a parent and as somebody who has buy-in on this. I guess some of the things that I wanted to ask are who this time specifically, what group started this discussion for this current discussion that we're doing right now? Was there a group involved, or was this a single person? I've heard a couple different things. So just clarity on how it got brought up and what the actual concerns of that initial thing were, that initial conversation was. I'd like to see some data. I mean, some real data. What does changing the mascot mean to the community? What changes? What needs to be changed? What is initial perception, and then after we change, what would change any perception that's left? I mean, there's data that we're missing, that we're not getting, that I'd really like to see. And, this is a really big community-driven thing, and so like I said, I really appreciate that you guys have tabled this, that this has been going to be looked at as a community issue, and as a citizen, we all pay taxes. We're all going to end up funding, part of this through what we pay for the school, what the school has to pay and takes away from our children. So this is a really big issue. I appreciate what you guys have done today to take that in and say this doesn't need to be overshadowed by everything else, but yet here's where we can, push it and make that a really big issue that we can focus in on at an appropriate time. So I really appreciate that, and I'm going to leave it at that. I'll be at the community meetings. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Deb Shield Larson.
Good evening. I'm Deb Shield Larson, Indianola, Iowa. Our family lives here, and we've raised our children through this school district. I'm here to request removal of the Indianola Indians and development of a plan to move forward together. I think it's page 7 of your meeting packet this evening that relates to this discussion. And I was interested to see that it includes a note, and I think you do that with everything you talk about, alignment with the district's strategic plan and board goals, our core values. The Marion, Iowa Community School District referred to their core values last fall when they considered removal of their Indians' name. They asked the community whether to keep or remove the Marion Indians and why. It was the why on those responses that was so important. Superintendent Janelle Brower was quoted as saying, "A lot of people would have liked to have kept it, but in the feedback, many find it offensive and that doesn't align with our core values." In Marion, the Indians' name and imagery were dropped just a few months ago. When you receive input on the Indianola Indians here in our community, how does the why compare to the Indianola School District's core values? It's good to hear from individuals on all sides of this discussion, including Native Americans. Individuals have their own opinions. Through President Keller's efforts, as he described, the board has worked with NAGA. Our concern is that you have input from Native Americans who not only support keeping this name, mascot, logo, but also Native Americans who have been hurt by it and who would support removal of the Indianola Indians. And I think that's our biggest disappointment, at least at this point, President Keller. At this point, we asked that the school board reach out to the Meskwaki Nation and to the Iowa Commission on Native American Affairs. They've been responsive to other school districts in the state, giving information, answering questions, and so far, it's our understanding that only NAGA is the group that you've talked about, or talked to, I should say. We already had reference to the letter from the chairwoman of the Iowa Commission on Native American Affairs, and this is the struggle because we're getting, instead of hearing from these groups directly, we're getting indirectly what they've written to other districts. The quote that, "We hope this letter encourages you to consider the harms and risks associated with the use of Native mascots." There's also a letter from the Meskwaki Nation, Judith Bender, dated September 24th, 2020, where she wrote in part, "Educational institutions choosing to use race-based Indian logos, mascots, and names harm children, exposing graduating class after graduating class to these stereotypes and indoctrinating them with the idea that it is acceptable to stereotype an entire race of people. None of the statements in these two letters include any concerns about erasing history. I think we can also agree that there is no honor in harming children." On the last page of your meeting packet, the Indianola Community School District's vision, mission, and beliefs are listed. The last statement is, quote, "Our actions will reflect our beliefs," end quote. In Indianola, community members, parents, and students know that standing up to ask for removal of the Indianola Indians is often unnerving because we face harassment, intimidation, verbal abuse, and threats. Our actions will reflect our beliefs. I'm quoting again from that statement in your packet. The Norwalk, Iowa Community School District recently removed their Native American imagery too. Have you thought about what you're going to say to the Norwalk community in October, just a few months from now, if the Indianola football team and fans show up as Indianola Indians in their community? Our actions will reflect our beliefs. Our daughter, 3 years ago, when she was here at the high school, that if one of our Native friends wrote to the high school, Indianola High School band director about why the Indianola tomahawk chop and chant is harmful, then school staff would understand. She was wrong. The band director chose to read our Native friend's explanation sarcastically out loud in class in front of everyone. One student said, "I'll just play it louder." Our daughter, who was frightened by the sarcasm, disbelief, and laughter, sat alone in the class and chose not to play. The director didn't stop either the behavior or the class consensus to keep the chop and chant. Our actions will reflect our beliefs. This is our concern. Will you choose to play it louder too, like the band did? Or will you remove the Indianola Indians? Our actions will reflect our beliefs. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Rose is next.
I always like to make a dramatic entrance. This is what happens when you're trying to be healthy, okay? And along with breaking my leg, also knocked out some teeth, so I sound like a first grader. Again, I appreciate your time. The agenda, I serve you on the AA board. I keep abreast of what you're doing. It's hard work you do. And all you need is one more thing like this. I've been for 25 years, and I've refrained from participating in this discussion for exactly that reason. I think the poor board has got more immediate things to deal with, and in good conscience, I just can't keep quiet anymore. That's why I'm here. I had to prepare a speech, but I listened to the conversation, and I'm a student of education. I taught teachers how to teach, and I taught about schools for 25 years. The last 22 of them were at Simpson College. And as I listened to the discussion earlier, I'm going to be a teacher now, I remember conversations from boards that happened in the 1950s in Kansas and Missouri on the topic of integration. We'll wait for a new set of board members to come on board before we make a decision. Well, a lot of the community are behind this idea. We're not sure it's so bad for those kids. It's proven that segregation of schools is a bad thing. In fact, it's an evil thing. Now, I'm not saying this is of the magnitude of that conversation, but it is of the same type. Martin Luther King said that the arc of justice is long. It's been arcing over this community in the 25 years I've been here. It's time to do something about it. It's not something to debate. It's wrong. It's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong to use a term like Indian as a mascot. Look across our nation and see the reaction to that. And incidentally, even the term Indian is comedic, because for many people, like a falsehood. Most folks weren't Indian, they were Native American, 2 continents away. Last of all, in my study of education, the thing that fascinated me the most, what schools do, is their moral impact on kids. You know, some people call it the informal curriculum, the hidden curriculum, et cetera, et cetera. I still think, after they walk out here and they can read and they can write, the next most important thing they can do is how do they make decisions? What are their sensibilities? Well, if I'm a kid growing up in a community where a term like Indian is used to describe it as a mascot, as a nickname, however you want to use it, I'm going to have a very disrespectful sense of the community from which I come as I go into the wider world. Yes, it has a long tradition in this community, but you look at how that term is accepted nationally, internationally, and it's pretty clear. It's time for school districts that use that term to disband. Thank you.
Ronald Free is next.
Hello, my name is Ronald Free, formerly Ronald Steeples. I grew up here. I graduated Indianola High School year 2000. I work with a Native American organization called the Great Plains Action Society. I spent a lot of time with Native Americans. A lot of times when I introduce myself, say where I'm from, they say, "Is that name still there?" It's changing all over the place. I don't really want to reiterate what most folks have said. However, I think if you guys want to come to the conversation in good faith, don't table it before the election. Make sure it stays on the table. Otherwise, you could just be opening the door to get rid of it. So, also I think it's a good opportunity to be working on this now, excuse me, sir, because you're trying to get your school back to normal, eventually, right? As soon as we can. Why not start it on a really good foot with this? I think that'd be pretty awesome. What I brought with me is some research for you all to consider. I work with a for-profit organization called NAGA. There's a lot of other stuff out there. I could also bring many actual indigenous people to the conversation. Like, this is research that shows what these mascots, team names, and others actually do to actual indigenous people. So we got stuff from the Journal of Social Psychology, we got stuff from the American Sociological Association, we got stuff from the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights on the Use of Native American nicknames as field symbols. It goes on and on. I forgot to bring, but you can even look at the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. It's addressed there. It's established what these names, these mascots do. Choosing to ignore it or choosing to have a friendly debate on it is literally centering your feelings over the actual issue. And that comes down to whether you understand it or not as white supremacy. if you can't listen to those that this actually affects because of your comfort, that is white supremacy. I urge you to keep this on the table now, work on it. I will leave my name and contact info and bring many indigenous organizations to the table if you'd like. But please, don't just let this wither. Thank you.
Thanks.
This is that research I mentioned.
Thank you. David Steeples is next.
As mentioned, my name is David Steeples. I've been a part of Indianola for over 30 years. Lived in the same house for 16 years. Rob sold it to me, so. I just wanted, so I wrote to school board this morning. This issue has been ongoing, as mentioned, with Simpson College in Redmond. Even most recently, police department removed their Indian head logo from the vehicle. So it surprised me a little bit that it sounds like we're getting caught a little flat-footed. I know that because of past issues, there's definitely a call for investigating much more reputable organizations than the Guardians. Guardians most likely would pop up. The National or the Native American Guardian Association will pop up when you talk about team names like the Indians in Redmond, because they are providing a different perspective than what is typical is provided by National Congress of Indian Affairs, American Indian Movement, NAACP, as was mentioned, the United Nations Expert on Human Rights for Indigenous People. Even NCAA has done studies on the harmful effects of using Indians as mascots, logos, things like that. I honestly do not have a lot of more information than we brought. Everybody that has spoken here has spoken very eloquently. I kind of wanted to make sure that this perspective was represented. I was intending on reading my email, but it has largely been covered here. The only things that I would add is I agree that this issue probably shouldn't be tabled. I mean, I understand with the pandemic going on, that things can be difficult. Things are ongoing and changing. But if we can find time, as opposed to just table it, to me it sounds like with an election, you want to wait till after the election. I know some people are leaving, but maybe some of us are just trying to protect our seats. I mean, this is probably a very divisive issue, and it would be a horrible thing to play politics with. It just doesn't really make sense. But also, obviously, we got to bring up, there is Native American history in this county dating back 9,000 years. From what I understand, there's archaeological digs in Carlisle. We have Indian mounds that are hundreds of years old, Victory Hills and Woodland Mounds. So it doesn't surprise me that we would have pride in our indigenous past. That is a given. But if we're just using it to build up an image of strength rather than the knowledge of what was, about understanding the history of where this county and the city and where the Native history is there, then we're doing a major disservice, not to just Native Americans, but to all of us, because this is our town. We should understand. I was heartened to see that within the school curriculum, my son, who last year was in 5th grade, now in 6th grade, there was a little bit of local history that was thrown in. He chose to write about Mesa Verde in Colorado, because that's a place that we had recently visited. But he told me a lot of the children wrote about the Woodland Mounds and local history, and that some of that was addressed within the school. I do remember going to the Woodland Mounds as a child, but I do not recall doing a lot of Native history that was moved. So I was very heartened to see that. I thought that was excellent. But I think if we do bring this up as a topic, something that we can look at, vote is, honestly, I'm sorry, voting on an issue that you're voting on the dignity of people to be able to show themselves for who they are. Not allowing another community to co-opt an image and a name. So I think voting on this would be poor. I think the obvious thing to do is just, look at what all the information that has been provided, all the studies that have been done. Look at that information. It's blatantly clear that we can't continue to call ourselves the Indians and have a level of respect that we can get from other communities, because it does have a tone of white supremacy to it. But I think that if we can reject the normalization, and a lot of times the language that is used, calling ourselves Indians, without the full understanding of what that means as a community, then we would reject this name for sure, because it doesn't make sense to co-opt a name, an idea, in the pursuit of, I'm not really sure what we're trying to pursue here. We have tradition behind the Indian name, but that tradition is founded not on so much history that we understand, but as sports regalia, as a logo. Something that we feel like we can get strength from without really understanding. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Again, I thought everybody spoke fantastically. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Breeden is next. Is it Bob or Rob?
Rob.
Rob, I'm sorry. Rob, my mistake.
Bob's my dad.
Gotcha.
So my name is Rob Breeden. Have two children that are raising their children here. Matt Breeden and Amy Shivers, who I think some of you know. Just had one graduate from Indianola, which is fantastic. And now I'm helping pay for college, so. Which is good. I really appreciate you guys, because I've been involved in what you do, the board, helping someone get elected, and 25 years ago, this issue came up. And it just so happened my son was on an AAU team, and we had, were invited to the World Series of baseball for AAU. So I had two goals for myself. He had his own goal. Mine was to get some crude oil, because I'd never seen crude oil before. And the other was to ask the people that I saw that were obviously Native American what they thought of us having a logo. And at the time it was that painting that Kling had done. And that was a beautiful portrait of Native American. Just, it was cast of such a powerful image. So the result of my polling, research to the people, everyone said, no, don't remove it. We don't want to be forgotten. They appreciated the fact that we had that imagery here, and it kept them alive. Because to them, they see it as a victory. They haven't been completely defeated. And that's the message I got from them. Every person I asked on the street said no. And we traveled around many small communities playing baseball. So I had a chance to reach out to many people, and that was the same answer across the board. I was fortunate enough to get an education at Simpson, and Redmond is not an appropriate name. I don't like Storm, but I'll live with it. And on the way here, I was thinking about the Fighting Irish. And that's with pride. And we can represent the Native American memory with the same mindset. We're not Indians, and they're probably not Irishmen either. But they fight with pride. They have that symbol of pride. We've done such a fabulous job of displaying something that's beautiful, and it represents these people. At Simpson College, they learned about their culture, their belief systems, and it gave me a deep appreciation for those people. And that's what we need in this school. As far as when you start looking at curriculum, let's explore it. And I appreciate you guys tabling this. I think it's a wise decision because there is a lot of discussion. And I would encourage us to some way talk to the folks, talk to people that are truly Native American and see what they think. Because I want to know their hearts. I know your hearts, and I love you guys. Because we all care about what we care about. You're representatives of our students, of our families here in this community. And we want to be good representatives. And you're doing a fantastic job. Just hearing the discussion, I appreciate all that you're doing. And that's all I have to say, so thank you.
Thank you.
Those are the people who signed up prior to the meeting to speak.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and your passion on this matter and discussing that with our. And we are going to go through the rest of our meeting, so we won't do anything more on this issue or matter this evening. So if any of you would like to leave at this time, that's totally fine. If you want to stay and watch, that's totally fine too. So.
Do the Robert's Rules of Order, the way that it's worded is tabled. We need to state it as tabled until.
It's not a formal tabling because it wasn't an action item. They're using the word generically. Yeah.
So that there's continued discussion.
Yeah. They're using that word generically, not as a matter of Robert's Rule of Order. And then I think too, even if they, as a board, don't bring it forward and act on it. I mean, I heard a desire to keep the conversation going, to reach out to board members, certainly look at research, share things, community-wide. So in between meetings, and if there's determination that they want to go the route of some kind of public forums, like I heard several members mention, there's still work that can be done. So so the word tabled, and correct me anybody if I'm wrong, but I was hearing it used generically, not as a point of order.
Thank you, everyone. Next, we have our consent agenda.
Yeah, that's fine. We can pause just a moment if some people are leaving. That's fine.
Go to the risk. Right.
That's what I think.
We're still.
Well, this is Amy over here.
It's really not a topic. We distributed our just follow questions.
I just didn't have the
discussion. It's recorded, and you can go back on and hear it.
No, they're
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, just want to check before we go.
Yeah, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Good.
You want to give me the address yet?
Snap a couple photos. That might be. Is that
Address up top of the head already.
Search stuff, to have it ready, but not go. Start doing stuff like that. It's very hard to do. Not anything we can present, because I think you might have seen it.
I checked mine about an hour before.
Kind of like, try to just turn it on. This is what we always do.
walk through how to get to it on.
So where are we at?
Yeah, there's a note right out there in the hallway that says that.
So it's been
First one in the 4
All
years.
right, we'll go ahead and resume. We'll begin with our consent agenda.
Okay.
Two things.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Motion made by Carolyn to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Donna. Any further discussion by the board on the consent agenda? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is professional learning update, probably with Mrs. Jerome.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide you an update. So far entering into the school year of professional learning, I'm also involved with Irving staff. They had their own sessions, and then a variety of things we're trying to do to make sure that any trainings teachers have are more personalized and specific to their content area needs and building needs. So again, just wanted to provide you an update to that so far of what's been going on this year.
Can I ask a question? On the reading, the new reading curriculum that we're doing, I've heard some discussion, and is that, are they finding, I know we just got started, but is Irving finding more time for independent reading? I know that was kind of an issue when they first started. Is it kind of ironing itself out now?
Well, when you start to implement a curriculum, sometimes it takes slower, and as the teachers get used to the routines, they'll get faster and they'll readjust any scheduling. But it is recommended within the program, certain amounts of time of independent reading throughout that program.
Is that kind of working itself out now?
I haven't heard a comment from a teacher on
I was
that
up
yet.
there, yeah, I was up there
So is
about a week and a half ago, and I think they pretty much,
They're getting it
I
ironed
think
out?
so, yeah, I think so.
I've been in several of the classrooms at Irving and just looking at the instructional techniques, and there's a framework that we're using for implementation. So, yeah, I think it's going very, very well
Good.
based on their input for that. And again, independent reading is very important, so we wouldn't want to lose that in some
Right.
way.
Good.
Question, what's the second step curriculum? In a sentence, I mean, I don't need to know.
Yeah, Second Step is the name of the company that is used for their curriculum. And it talks a lot about those interactions of students, being able to work well together. And that's what those counselors use online
Oh, okay.
for their lessons.
Excellent, I appreciate this, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jerome. Next is the board HR committee meeting report. And in this, we discussed mainly the calendar. Mimi's trying to get that together as early as possible for our
Good for you, Mimi.
for our district. I applaud her because I think that's great for
I do too. It's
families
awesome.
to be able to know ahead of time, like a year in advance of what the calendar is going to be, and I think that's just wonderful. And of course, she has printed on there the desired, the required, that we have to do. Some things are required, some things are desired, and if those things are able to fit. Also, it was the board's thought to try to implement like a 180-day schedule again instead of the 178 as far as student days are concerned. And so she was able to hit that and was able to work around some obstacles, I think, that we thought we were going to have to, but she had like an idea on how to make it work and stuff, and it seems to be working. Is there anything else that you feel like still needs to be adjusted or anything like that?
I know there is concern about the orientation still, even with, you know, I had suggested we get day zero. I know some of our elementaries do it at day zero or a couple of day zeros to kind of get up to speed and go over some of the rules and stuff. There was some concern at the 6th grade level having that first day of school be the orientation with all of the 900 students that are there. So there's still some concern about that. But that's the only feedback that I've received administratively. Am I missing anything?
The only other one we haven't constructed yet, but just with the year-round calendar, which usually we get the traditional done first and then work off of that. But just that reminder that as the student information system rolls over July 1st, that it's very tough to get everybody in classes and everything organized more quickly than mid-July, which is what we did this year.
Right.
So just that reminder that it would be very tough to start school July 7th instead of July 14th, for example.
Right. And I know that we got an exception last year from the state because you can only have 6 weeks between the end of the school year and the start of the year-round school program. So we did get an exception to go a couple of days over that. So as we talk kind of through this calendar and then put the year-round calendar together, we'll see what that looks like. And if we need to go and ask for an exception again, we can do that to give secretaries time to get all of the students enrolled and set up before class starts.
You see this coming back for a vote, like probably next meeting or the following?
You know, it's up for discussion with you all right now. So if there's a lot of change or concern, or if you've heard from anyone.
I don't have any. I was at the committee. I think it's a great calendar.
What's the flex day, Mimi?
But I thought we talked about when to vote on it. Should this sit and wait for a while closer to January or something? Was there a reason why we?
I think
Did we
probably just, we typically have had calendars around December. Now, last year was later, longer. It was new to people who were working on it, and we kind of threw it to a committee. So, I mean, last year was sort of atypical. We didn't really get it approved, I don't think, until March or so, maybe. Typically, it's kind of December timeframe, but that's not a statutory requirement or anything. It's just a matter of that's what's been done customarily. I think it's been a priority for Mimi just because of things going on with her, wanting to get that knocked out quickly, so.
Yeah. One of the pages on here says considerations, and you'll see the things that aren't marked off. The teacher flex days that I know have been important to staff. There are no teacher flex days built into this calendar. So the staff contract has 190 days, or the teacher contract has 190 days, and if the board wants 180 days, so then we're down to 10. 2 of those days are paid holidays, so then we're down to 8 in order to get PD and work days and before school days and checkout days. We've got 8 days really to work with, and that's what we were trying to squeeze into this calendar. You'll notice at the beginning of the school year, we traditionally have had a full work day and a full building meeting day and a full district day. We've had to combine those into half days in order to maximize the use of those 8 days and get the professional development spread out throughout the year, and then work days and those kinds of things. So that considerations page within the packet checks off what we got, checks off the things we know have been talked about before that weren't included in this, and then there were some question marks about the dates of state wrestling and coinciding with Des Moines Public Schools, because I couldn't find those anywhere for 22-23 yet. So.
Rob, I have no objection to voting next week or the one after. I mean, it's public, people can see it, it was in our packet,
Donnie, or Mimi answered the question, or did she? Did you have another question?
No.
Sorry.
No, she answered my question. I wish there was a flex day in there. That's all I'm saying, so. That would be
No,
my
I think there was
comment.
give and take with the 180 versus the flex was that what we ran into?
And if we do want 2 weeks at winter break, we can add as many days where neither staff or students aren't here. We can add as many of those as we want. It'll push out if we're done before Memorial Day or not done before Memorial Day. But the tight spot is that 8 days that we have to do PD and work days, and that's those are the only times that we have teachers on site without students with 8 days.
Which I remember, Mrs. Jerron, I had a conversation with you that we need, or you have things that we need to cover. Is that correct, or was I remembering incorrectly there?
I would go back to the list I submitted for this evening's meeting. That's an example of the type of learning that is taking place. So I believe we have 5 days of professional learning in this calendar, right, from those versions. And I know historically there have been more, 7. I don't think we've gone below 5.
I think we had 3 one year, and it was not good.
And that might have been before when I was in this position, so.
Do you feel like this is adequate to what you need to get accomplished?
It is on the terms of the professional learning side. It doesn't include any requests for like massive safety trainings that might be occurring, or if there's other types of staff, what's called staff development, which are more like employer HR type trainings that the state rolls out that has to be accomplished there. On the learning side for instruction and assessment, yes, but I know Art has an initiative with safety things, I know Mimi has things for HR, there are other types of trainings too. So.
Maybe street wrestling's, I think, the 17th, 18th, 19th.
For 2023.
It's usually that third weekend. It's usually almost all.
It's pretty tough.
I just
This
have
week,
chairman, so
this
it's
week more, more days now. The one thing that could happen that we can't control. We had snow days we didn't make up. That would create teacher days.
Did you have something you want to share?
Yeah. Just talking like
I just thought the teacher would jump on you just like that.
I just was like, he was just asking, to Mrs. Duran's point, he was just saying, is there any way to get that other kind of training included? And I know sometimes within staff meetings, some of that gets done. I know Mr. Siebersma had some Stop the Bleed training, but it's tough to do large-scale training that really takes time without additional contract days. And I just made the comment that one thing that sometimes happens, we don't know if it will, but if there are snow days that we don't have teachers working on that snow day, well, then there's a contract day. So potentially you could, if you had a couple of snow days that you didn't make kids make up, and we had extra contract days, that is the kind of thing you could do, late spring contract. So, but other than that, I mean, what Mimi says is exactly right. You're working with a limited number of days and lots of things to do during them, so it's a little bit of a puzzle.
And, there's other options that usually school districts are slow to do, but we're gonna have some flexibility with this ESSA money. And, I'm not advocating changing the 190 days or anything like that. But if we do some things in the summer, we can afford to pay the staff if they are appropriate, I think. I just keep that in my head.
Yeah, I think there definitely is some flexibility with the ESSER money. There are some strings that,
oh yeah,
that it comes attached to in terms of showing whether it's research-based practice, for example, or something like that. But there could be things.
I think that, yeah. Ben, you have any concerns with like that, with the safety thing there? I know you're probably wanting to get it in there.
I mean, it's something obviously it's been on our mind, but it's also difficult given that, we only have so many days to get it in. So I think probably, like Ken said, if there's some date in the summer perhaps or something like that. Might be.
And I would say, we're not just not doing anything there. I mean, for example, we had several administrators at the virtual tabletop that we collaborated with, police, fire, county disaster management, Simpson, Victory Christian. I know our school that got the quickest start, our year-round elementary, has gotten their emergency plan back in front of one of the officers that former Chief Button said, these are the guys we'd like to review these. So we're going to keep plugging away. It's just kind of that large scale stuff where we want to bring in a whole building or multiple buildings. It's really tough to do that unless you have some time designated for that. So.
And perhaps some of that safety training can be broken down in smaller chunks and done at building meetings, because there is some flexibility. Is it two
Some that you
building
can, like Stop the Bleed. I mean, some of these things, it doesn't take, it's not an all-day thing. It's not a huge drill. And I think our principals can figure some of that out.
It may take several different meetings.
Yeah, I think we can have 3 a month max, is what the master contract says, I think.
There's some room to get some training into.
Okay. The next thing we did was in regards to, we spoke about associates, just the shortage that we have, and we showed the schools that we were showing kind of some shortage there. And of course, this isn't just unique to Indianola, it's unfortunately statewide, something that we're dealing with. So if you know somebody that would like to serve as an associate in our district, send them to Mimi.
Kidnap them.
Next, we need to talk about the year-round calendar amendment.
Yeah, this is for this school year, and I know we've talked about this a bazillion times, but transportation let me know. So Friday, December 17th is the last day for Irving, and is that right? And then the rest of the schools go an additional day. So in the master contract, the day before winter break is a 1 hour early out. Our buses can't turn around a 1 hour early out and then run the regular route. So we're asking for a 90-minute out for Irving the day before winter break to comply with the master contract and to be able to get our buses back to run the regular route that same day. So it'd be kind of a minor tweak from a 1 hour early dismissal to a 90-minute early dismissal.
I think that's gonna take a motion.
Yep.
I so move.
Okay. Motion made by Ken to approve. Seconded by Lori. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Appreciate your support of that. That's by far the easiest solution on that one, so.
I was just trying to figure out if it's that way in the 22-23.
We haven't built the year-round calendar yet in 22-23.
So we're gonna try to have breaks end on the same day.
Yeah, that would.
I'm getting there.
Next,
good.
Next is the finance committee meeting, and we had a good meeting there. Unfortunately, the news isn't wonderful always, but after a good district report card of how the district was doing the last meeting, then we have this one where we're realizing, our outgoing senior class from last year and our incoming kindergarten class, we're at a net loss there of,
It was 70, but.
I think it was 70 at the time of the meeting, and it's 67 as of today.
What was it?
There've been a few more enrolled, so, yeah.
So we're short there, which could just be future things. We may have to look at things down in the future there. So that's, nothing to ring the alarm bells about and stuff right now, but just be aware of that. I mean, we've got to stay focused on that because that's how we receive funding, is on a per pupil basis there. And then the next thing is Jonna's chart that she put together there. That was in regards to Iowa birth rate and current Indianola Community School District enrollment. And so if you look at that on page 28 of your board packet, it shows the Iowa birth rate. So that would have been the year the current 12th grade kids were born, or the year the current 1-year-olds were born, and where that birth rate is. And then it's also showing our enrollment following that, and you can kind of see there's some correlation there between the birth rate and the enrollment. Unfortunately, the birth rate in Iowa continues to go down as it does nationally. So that's also some concern.
It is, and I was curious, I'm always trying to look every different way. Our census for 10 years, the town of Indianola, we serve more than the town, there were 1,189 people. The school district only added 173 kids. So we're getting, I don't think we're getting as many kids per family, or as many family having any kids at all. Because you've seen the houses going up. Yeah. And we're doing that. So.
I think the pandemic has produced some baby boomers coming.
I hope you're right, Laura.
I mean, as a daycare provider, I probably average 5 to 6 calls a day. Babies are due here in the next month or two, and there's nobody that has openings. I mean, it's just.
I've asked my practice too, and they said that it's not an unusually high number like it was predicted, so they're kind of saying it's about normal.
We've talked before about our enrollment study and how that hasn't quite panned out, and I remember our work too when I was on the city's comprehensive plan renewal, and they were looking at housing needs in the city, and those enrollment people, they figure a certain number per type of housing unit. Single family home, I think they figure like 1.2, and multifamily housing they figure 2.3 or something. So that metric they're using, like you said, that the houses are being built, but the 1.2 is not coming with it. So
Just for you guys that don't love looking at charts and stuff all the time, like, just, what you really want to look at is that, oh, sorry, it's up there. So just look at that far right, kind of where the birth rate's headed. That's what's kind of.
I mean, that's about the only thing you can do to kind of second
Right.
guess what might be coming our way.
Yeah, you have no idea.
I mean, you don't have any idea, but if you just look at the Iowa birth rate,
So,
as good as you can get.
yeah, so we'll continue to watch that. We look at capital and save funds as well. Nothing really new with that section. So we'll move on to the facilities project update.
You have an update there. Auditorium, I shared out a picture on Facebook of the new seats going in. I think they had most of the backs in, and then they were going to put the other part in. If you would cut through the auditorium lobby right now, it's boxes everywhere. I mean, it's an ongoing thing.
Really nice.
Are they
But-
carpeting any of it, or it's all just floor?
Yeah, the outside aisle, the aisles will be carpeted.
Yeah, it's been carpeted.
Now, underneath the seats, they're going with the polished concrete, and we looked at several different options, because where they tore out the old seats, that kind of left some scarring, didn't look great, so they have gone through a process where they're using a polished concrete. I think it's gonna look good. I've seen just a small sample of it, I haven't seen the whole thing, but.
Green room looks nice too. That's where they got that paint.
Yeah, they've been using the paint and.
It looks really nice.
So
is October still the target?
yes, well, our first event in there is scheduled in October. The last construction meeting I went to, we were at that point still kind of hoping for mid-September, but I've heard there is some delay in the carpet. Good news is that a lot of the labor-intensive thing, like the seats, they're going to get in there. The acoustical tile is there. We did run into a little issue with that and had to kind of engineer a change on that. That'll be a slight change order, but it's going to be needed. I'm trying to think if there's anything else with that project. It is progressing, and I'm hoping it's ready. The first event we scheduled in there was an orchestra concert in October. So hopefully, worst case, we could have it, and maybe we wouldn't have carpet down the outside. But yeah, it's progressing. I think it's going to look great. Auxiliary service building, I know that Envision met with directors just to kind of refine that plan again. And that task force meeting is scheduled for tomorrow night with the members that we grabbed from the community to kind of brainstorm approach that we want to do for the high school long term. So that meeting's tomorrow night. I don't really have anything new on site. I know that's something we've been talking about too with that auxiliary services building.
Is that something you're running, or is that
The architects will run it, I'll be there, and I think the hope is that, the community people really are having a voice there, so I'm not gonna go in and dominate the conversation, but.
Then that's specifically for that building, not the high school building?
No, I'm sorry, I think I kind of mingled the two. The high school renovation next steps, that's the task force meeting for the high school project.
They're the ones meeting tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're getting that.
Because that first meeting was postponed. This is the first time.
It was, I think 6 to 10 had a conflict the first time they tried to do it, and this was a better date, so, yep. Other than that, it's pretty quiet on the facility front.
Next is the board policy committee meeting report.
Yeah, we got together August 6th. You see the policies listed there. We had a meeting after that, so we're here just to have another reading of them.
We're having a second reading of the board policies.
I didn't have anything come up in between readings or anything. I don't know if Ken or Ben, have you heard anything on policies?
No, and like we said, I think last time, what we were doing was just bringing the words in compliance with the recent legislation. Nothing innovative.
Yeah, you see the mix of numbers on this. Lots of times we'll do a series, like the 200 series, but this was a policy primer. ISB will put out a set of policies, like after the legislative session, exactly like Mr. Bresnan was saying, and just make sure that policies are compliant with new laws. So that's really the bulk of this.
I'll make a motion, but I'm a little confused about doing first reading or second.
This is a second reading. Yep.
I move second reading be approved of the policies listed.
And to approve those policies.
Second.
Seconded by Ben. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Just one thing on the subject. At the meeting, we talked about, we're trying to remember if we had a policy, which we did, and I sent the members on drones.
Yeah,
I think we need some publicity on that, like around the field, so people know that they can't do it here.
right, yep, I would agree with that. And that is a policy that, in the 900 series that we put in a while back, but that just came up again today because somebody was sharing drone pictures. I said, yeah, those are great. They should have had permission
From Saturday
to be
night.
there to take those, yes.
Is that from Saturday night?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that all.
So,
And that's one thing we made, well, that scares us was a football game. You know, parents want to get good pictures of them, but then having 2 drones, you know, so it's better to.
yep. Yeah, that's a great point.
And I didn't get to attend that Saturday night's event, but I heard it went really well.
It went really well.
But no, not a lot of people stayed for the movie.
Yeah, there was,
I think that was kind of hard for, Community Youth Foundation, but that was good. We did.
Doc Till and some of those guys sat out on the field for quite a while, and it was getting kind of chilly, so they
Next is the board calendar for next September. Already there.
Here we are.
Wow.
Hold on.
Any,
Art, are we gonna?
Can we go back?
oh yeah, what do you need?
No, I just need the calendar out there.
I'm gonna be gone from the 27th through the 10th of August to 10th September.
Okay.
Do we need a policy meeting?
We don't, we have caught up and, at one point we were kind of behind the statutory limit. We're fine. I think we could afford not to have one.
Okay.
That's the desire.
Okay, I thought.
I mean, it's kind of a highlight of Ben's month. But
It is. Absolutely.
The other problem comes for me with the facilities committee. Can that be bounced a week later?
Not on the same day because I have curriculum.
A different day that week?
Got it.
Okay.
I'm sure it can be. So,
Any day that following weekend, so
Yeah.
whatever works for you.
Oh, Rita's still in Canada. I can do anything. I'm retired and no wife, so.
Sue, it's on you.
Well, Tuesday would be
force
best,
rep?
but is that when you're, are you guys on either of these Tuesday?
we're gonna do away with policy for September, so that's not a conflict.
So what would that next Tuesday be?
Oh, the 14th.
Question mark
For HR. Do we have people on policy and HR? You're on both, you're on, facilities and HR, I'm sorry. Are you on both? Okay, gotcha. But
Then
you're,
I get all these others. We did have another, I forgot to report on board. We had another one of those conference committee reports where it's school boards, mayors, and board of supervisors that oversees the assessor's office to reappoint her. Set a record, 3-minute meeting. It was good. I liked that one.
Wow.
Ken, you were asking about the week of September 13th for
Yeah.
facilities. How about, we don't typically do meetings on a Wednesday, but what about Wednesday the 15th? We don't have any other committees on Wednesdays. That'd be okay for facilities, Sue?
At 7.
Sure.
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay, so let's move our September 2nd board facilities to the 15th. Sound good? Okay. I will change it on the calendar now, so you might get an update there.
And then the next is the agenda for the next board meeting. John will be back. The 13th, September 13th. Thank you for everyone for being here this evening and for having a good discussion as a board.
I have a quick question. Do we have any need to have a fall work session at all on any of the goals that we're looking at or any of the things, or
Yeah, I would
As we
I would
move.
recommend doing it at least quarterly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you want to get too far into the school year without having a work session.
I mean, I know we were getting new people in November, but that is still,
Not till January though.
yeah, I mean, that, so, I just thought I was.
They take
They'll be on.
November.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
right after the election, as soon as
Okay.
it's certified.
Yeah.
We
Just
went
pack
to
your
the Iowa
bags.
Association School Board meeting.
That first year,
I was gonna
Carol-
keep going.
that first year, Carolyn, that was the big question when they started, but then
Okay.
they have since, and we've updated our policies to reflect that too, that we'll have that
But you know, you get,
organizational meeting in November.
you get into November.
January had no
so-
relevance in my conversation, I guess.
So maybe September, October.
Well, I was just thinking
Carolyn,
maybe,
you're welcome to come through January.
I was just thinking like maybe the first part of October as the school year is underway, and, because if we wait till November and December's gone, and now we're looking at, so just some thoughts if we wanted to get back, circle our goals and
Yeah.
Yep.
where we're headed as a board for the next, or any thoughts from board members that have been here for 4 years?
Our meetings in October are the 11th and 25th, I believe. So if you would want to go before, would you want to go the 4th or the 18th?
Not that first week in October.
You like that, you said?
I would be out.
Oh, you would be
first
out.
week. Yep, I could do the 18th.
Or November for, yeah, I don't care.
18th.
That's a Monday.
It's nice to stick to Mondays, it's more predictable for everybody's calendars.
Yeah.
Let's just pencil in an October 18th work session, and I'll send an invite.
5:30.
Whatever works, I mean, I think that's fine. In the past, with a work session, we try to have some kind of sack lunch or something here around 5, and work pretty much like 5:30 to 8, we can get a lot done, or 5:30 to 7:30.
Yeah, it'd be 5:30 before I can get here.
Okay. We can just plan to start it at 5:30, that's fine.
October 18th.
Yep. We will, it's looking like, and I will give you an update too, we're gonna have to probably fit in another kind of hearing on a personnel matter at some point. So I'll talk to you more about that.
You might want to let Jonna know about the work session so she has time to make dessert.
I'm gonna send her a message.
Do we have to come back so we can just see? Follow up on the comment you were making before we all introduced you. Yeah, I think the tone has been set, and we heard dialogue, so, and we heard respectful dialogue, we heard everything that we hope gets to be when we get there. I think it's already started, so, cool.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second!
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I'll let you have it back, maybe in a
No,
month. Maybe in a month.
Even worse, huh? Grasshopper.